Emma Turner never expected one small decision to shake her entire world. But life has a strange way of surprising people when they feel the most lost. She was 34, living in Seattle, married for 8 quiet years to Mark Turner, a software engineer who loved order, schedules, and routine. Their marriage was peaceful, but the peace felt heavy like silence that lasted too long. Emma worked from home as a content editor, spending most of her days alone. Over time, the loneliness began to sit inside her like a stone, and she felt herself slipping into a life she didn't recognize. One evening, after another dinner filled with short conversations and Mark scrolling on his phone, Emma felt a spark of frustration. She wanted something, anything that belonged only to her. So she opened her laptop and searched for adult classes near me. She didn't know what she was looking for until her eyes landed on a picture of a small music studio. She remembered how she loved piano as a child. Something inside her thumped with a strange mix of nostalgia and hope. Before she could overthink it, she signed up for a piano lesson. The following Tuesday, heavy rain fell over the city. Emma wore a simple beige coat and tied her hair quickly before stepping into the storm. Her heart beat faster as she walked toward the music studio. She kept telling herself it was a hobby, just a harmless class. But a feeling of nervous anticipation clung to her chest when Emma pushed open the glass door. Warm air and soft music welcomed her. The studio smelled like old books, polished wood, and a hint of coffee. It felt safe. She stepped inside, shaking off raindrops, when a voice called from the back. "Are you Emma?" She turned and saw him, Daniel Hayes, her new teacher. He looked about her age, maybe a little older. He wore a dark sweater, his brown hair slightly messy, like he had run his hands through it too many times. His smile was gentle, the kind that made people relax without meaning to. Emma felt a surprising wave of ease wash through her, something she hadn't felt in a long time. "Yes," she said, trying to sound confident. "First lesson." "Great," Daniel replied. "Come on in." He led her down a quiet hallway to a room that instantly took her breath away. Right in the center stood an enormous grand piano, black, glossy, and stunning. It looked far too large for the small studio. Emma froze, eyes wide. "I've never seen anything bigger than his piano," she whispered before realizing she had spoken out loud. Daniel turned to her with a soft chuckle. "Yeah, it's dramatic. I found it in an old theater downtown. Couldn't let it go." The warmth in his voice made her smile without thinking. She moved closer, touching the cool surface of the piano. It felt powerful, beautiful, alive. Emma forgot the rain outside, the silence at home, even the weight she had carried in her heart for months. She only felt the moment. "Don't worry," Daniel said, pulling out a chair. "It looks intimidating, but it wants to be played." She sat down, adjusting her hands nervously. Daniel stood beside her, not too close, but close enough that she could feel the calm energy he carried. His presence was steady, patient, something she hadn't felt from anyone in a long time. "Let's start simple," he said. "Place your hands here," when his fingers gently guided hers to the right keys. The soft brush of skin made her breath catch. The touch wasn't romantic or inappropriate, it was just human, warm, real, and somehow it felt like more than she expected. She pressed down on the keys, producing uneven sounds, but Daniel's voice was patient. "Good, again. Let your hands relax." Emma tried, and slowly the room filled with soft, hesitant notes. For the first time in months, her mind felt quiet. The music gave her something she didn't know she was missing: space to breathe. When the lesson ended, Emma stepped outside, the rain now softer. She felt different, not dramatic, not in love, not confused, just awake. She realized she had forgotten how good it felt to be truly seen, even by a stranger. She sat in her car and placed her hands on the steering wheel, still feeling the warmth of the piano keys. Why did today feel like the beginning of something new? Why did she feel something she hadn't felt in years? She didn't have answers, but she knew this. The piano wasn't the only thing bigger than she expected. Something inside her had shifted in. She couldn't ignore it. Emma couldn't stop thinking about the piano lesson. Even after returning home, the memory of Daniel's calm presence and the enormous piano lingered in her mind. She had told herself it was just music, nothing more, but her heart kept insisting otherwise. Each day she woke up with a quiet anticipation she hadn't felt in years. Like something new and alive was waiting for her outside her usual routine. By the following week, she was driving to the studio earlier than needed. The rain had stopped and sunlight peeked through the clouds. Her hands gripped the steering wheel as if it held all the courage she needed. Emma wondered why she felt nervous. It was only a piano lesson, she reminded herself. Yet the thought of seeing Daniel again made her pulse quicken in a way she hadn't expected. When she entered the studio, Daniel was already there, setting sheet music on the stand. He looked up and smiled warmly. "Emma, good to see you again. Ready to try something new?" She nodded, feeling her cheeks warm. "Yes, I'm ready." As she sat down at the piano, Daniel guided her hands over the keys. This time, the music felt smoother, less hesitant. Her fingers moved more confidently, the notes filling the room with a soft melody. She noticed how effortlessly he watched her, correcting her posture gently, giving her encouragement with every small success. It wasn't just teaching, it was understanding. Noticing her in a way Mark no longer did. After a while, Daniel paused and leaned slightly closer to adjust her hand placement. "You're improving fast," he said, "but you look a little distracted. Is everything okay?" Emma froze for a moment. His question was casual, but his tone carried a warmth that made her heart ache. She realized she wanted to share, to tell him something, even though it wasn't his business. She shook her head lightly. "I'm fine. Just tired, I guess." Daniel didn't push further. He smiled softly. "Sometimes people carry more than they say. Music helps. Try to let it out." Emma felt a lump in her throat. The way he understood without forcing, the patience he offered, it stirred feelings she didn't know she still had in her chest. She tried to focus on the music, letting the melody flow beneath her fingers, but her thoughts kept drifting. She wondered if she had been wrong to come here. She was married. This attention, this carrot, felt wrong in a way. Yet right in another dot by the end of the lesson, Emma's hands felt tired but alive. Her mind, however, was buzzing. She stood up, thanked Daniel, and walked to the door, trying to calm her racing thoughts. Outside, the air was cool, and the city hummed with life. She wanted to text Mark to share this feeling with him, but she stopped herself. She didn't want to burden him, and she wasn't even sure she could explain it. That night, Emma kept replaying the lesson in her mind. She thought about how Daniel had noticed her sadness, something Mark never seemed to see. It wasn't about attraction, it was about being seen, being understood. She wondered if it was selfish to feel this way, but she couldn't deny the warmth that spread through her chest whenever she remembered his smile. The following week, the message arrived. Daniel had texted her a simple note. "Are you okay? You rushed out last time. Hope everything is all right." Her heart skipped a beat. It wasn't romantic, not explicitly, but it carried concern, thoughtfulness, a genuine care that she hadn't experienced in a long time. She stared at the message, debating whether to reply. Finally, she typed back, "I'm okay. Just dealing with things at home." The three dots appeared and she waited, unsure if he was even reading it. "If you ever need to talk or just need music, I'm here," he responded. That simple line brought a strange comfort, but also a pang of guilt. She realized her longing wasn't for Daniel, but for the attention, understanding, and connection she had been missing in her marriage. Emma sat by the window that night, watching the city lights blur through the rain-streaked glass. She thought about the lessons, the piano, and Daniel's presence. She felt alive again, but also confused. She didn't want to cross any line, but she couldn't ignore how much she needed someone to truly notice her, to listen to her for the first time in months. Emma acknowledged something hard to admit. She felt alone even in her marriage. Daniel wasn't the problem. He was the mirror reflecting her own heart, showing her what she had been missing all this time. The piano had awakened something in her that was not just about music, but about being seen, being valued, being connected. And deep down, Emma knew she would have to make a choice soon between ignoring these feelings, risking her own heart, or confronting the truth of what she truly wanted from life and love. The melody lingered in her mind. Long after the piano keys went silent, a quiet reminder that life could surprise her, even when she least expected it. Saturday morning came, and Emma woke with a quiet tension she couldn't shake. All week, her thoughts had been tangled between the piano lessons and the messages from Daniel. She kept telling herself it was harmless, that nothing romantic was happening, but her heart didn't listen. She felt alive in a way she hadn't in years, and it both thrilled and frightened her. Her phone buzzed as she sipped coffee, and she froze. The message preview read, "Are you okay? You rushed out yesterday. I hope everything's all right." It was Daniel. Innocent, caring, thoughtful. Emma's fingers trembled as she read it. She knew she shouldn't reply. She was married. Her heart belonged to Mark, and yet Daniel's concern felt like a lifeline she had been missing for too long. After a deep breath, she typed back slowly, "I'm okay. Just dealing with things at home." The three dots appeared, then disappeared, leaving her staring at the screen. Moments later, a reply arrived. "If you ever need to talk or just need music, I'm here." Emma's chest tightened. It wasn't flirtation. It wasn't even an invitation beyond the lessons. But the warmth behind his words made her realize how little attention she had received at home lately. Mark was present physically, but he wasn't present emotionally. Daniel, a stranger, had noticed her sadness before anyone else did. That thought both comforted and unsettled her. That evening, Emma sat alone in the living room. Mark was working late, as usual, buried in his laptop. She watched the glow of the screen and the quiet hum of the apartment and felt a pang of loneliness. The messages, the piano lessons, Daniel's calm presence, they had awakened something she thought she had lost forever. Not desire, exactly, but connection, attention, recognition. She realized she hadn't felt seen in years. Emma knew the boundary she was treading. Daniel hadn't crossed a line. He had offered nothing improper. He had simply been kind. And yet, kindness was enough to stir feelings she hadn't expected. She tried to push it away, to tell herself it was just the thrill of new learning, just music. But deep down, she knew it was more was the attention, the understanding, the fact that someone could notice her without judgment. She spent the rest of the week wondering how to handle it. Should she continue lessons? Should she reply to his messages? The more she thought about it, the more she realized that she didn't want to stop. She wanted to keep feeling alive, even if it was complicated and uncomfortable. The next lesson arrived, and Emma's heart raced as she walked into the studio. Daniel greeted her with a warm smile, unaware of the storm of emotion inside her. He guided her hands over the keys, gently correcting her posture, reminding her to let the music flow. Every small touch, every soft word, felt like a spark, igniting emotions she had buried long ago. She felt alive, focused, and yet distracted all at once. At one point, Daniel paused, looking at her with gentle concern. "Emma, you've been quiet. Are you sure everything is okay?" His voice wasn't accusing or curious, it was caring. She realized that no one had asked her that in years. Not really. Not Mark, I am. "Just thinking," she replied softly, unsure how to explain the complicated mix of gratitude, longing, and guilt she felt. Daniel nodded. "Sometimes thinking is important. Music helps release what's inside." Emma left the lesson later than usual, walking through the quiet streets. The city felt different, now brighter, sharper, more alive. The piano melody lingered in her mind, along with Daniel's words and the quiet warmth of his presence. She realized that the lessons had become more than just music. They had become a mirror, reflecting what she had been missing in her life and marriage. At home, she sat on the couch, staring at her phone. Daniel's message from earlier in the week repeated in her mind. "If you ever need to talk or just need music, I'm here." She felt the pull of his kindness, but also a sharp awareness of her responsibilities and commitments. She loved Mark. She didn't want to hurt him. Yet she couldn't ignore the fact that she felt alive in ways she hadn't felt for years. Finally, Emma made a small decision. She would continue the lessons, not to escape, not to flirt, but to reconnect with herself, to find the spark she had lost somewhere along the way. She realized Daniel's presence wasn't a threat, was a reminder that life could still hold surprises, that attention, understanding, and kindness could rekindle hope. As she set her phone down and looked out the window at the city lights, she felt a quiet determination. She didn't have all the answers yet. She didn't know how her marriage would shift, how Mark would react if he realized how much she had been craving emotional connection. But she knew one thing. She couldn't ignore what her heart had started to remember. The piano, the messages, the warmth of a caring stranger. They had awakened her. And now she had to face the truth of what it meant for her life, her marriage, and the fragile hope of being truly seen again. The next morning, Emma woke with a weight she couldn't shake. She knew she needed to face reality. All week, she had been living in two worlds, one with Mark, filled with quiet distance, and one with Daniel, full of attention, warmth, and understanding. She loved Mark, but she couldn't ignore the truth. Their marriage had grown cold, and she had been craving the connection she hadn't felt in years. Emma poured coffee, trying to calm herself, but her mind kept replaying the lessons, Daniel's messages, the way he noticed her sadness without judgment. She thought she could compartmentalize it, but the truth was unavoidable. Her heart had been stirred, and it demanded honesty. Later that morning, Mark walked into the kitchen looking tired but cheerful. "Morning," he said, pouring himself coffee. Emma forced a smile, but the tension inside her wouldn't allow it to stay light. She took a deep breath. "Mark, we need to talk." Mark looked up, his smile fading. "Okay, what about?" Emma's throat tightened. She couldn't just start talking about Daniel. That wasn't the point. The point was her marriage, the distance, the loneliness, the emotional gap that had grown between them. "It's about us. About how we've been distant," she said softly. "I've felt alone even when you're here. And I think you've noticed it too, in your own way." Mark's face shifted from confusion to concern. "Alone, Emma? I didn't realize it was that bad." She shook her head. "It's not just about bad or good. It's about connection. About being seen. I've been missing that. I love you, Mark, but I need us to change. I can't keep feeling invisible in our own life together." Mark sat down, his eyes softening. He didn't yell, he didn't blame. Instead, he took her hands gently, and for the first time in months, Emma felt him truly present. "You're right," he said quietly. "I've been too caught up in work, in routine, in life. I didn't see how much it hurt you. I want to fix it. I want us back." Tears welled up in Emma's eyes. She had expected anger, perhaps even a fight. But this quiet acknowledgement, this willingness to confront their distance, filled her with a mix of relief and hope. She realized then that Daniel hadn't caused this problem. Daniel had simply shown her what she had been missing all along: the attention, understanding, and presence she had been longing for. Later, she sent Daniel a message. It was short but heartfelt. "Thank you for the music and the care you showed. You reminded me what it feels like to be seen. But I need to focus on my marriage and reconnect with my husband. I hope you understand." Daniel replied almost immediately. "I understand completely. Sometimes music brings people home, not away from it. I'm glad you're choosing love." Kema smiled, a soft, bittersweet smile. She realized Daniel had been more than a teacher. He had been a mirror, showing her the gap she needed to fill in her own life. She wasn't shutting him out because she disliked him. She was shutting the door gently because she had chosen the life she wanted to nurture, one with Mark. But different, renewed, alive. Over the next weeks, Emma and Mark made small but meaningful changes. They scheduled time together without distractions, talked about feelings instead of logistics, and shared moments of laughter and music. Emma even brought out the old piano in their living room, something they hadn't touched in years. Together, they played simple tunes, laughing at mistakes, rediscovering joy in each other's company. Emma's heart had been stirred by someone else. Yes, but the experience gave her clarity. She understood that love isn't always about passion or excitement. It's about being seen, being heard, and being valued. She realized she could reignite that love at home, with patience, care, and honesty. One evening, as they sat on the couch with the city lights twinkling outside, Mark turned to her and said, "I know I haven't always been the husband you needed, but I promise to try every day to be present, to see you, to be with you." Emma took his hand, squeezing it gently. "I know," she whispered, "and I'll try too. We'll figure this out together." And in that quiet moment, Emma realized something profound. The biggest lesson she learned that year wasn't about the piano or Daniel or even her fleeting longing. It was about love, attention, and the courage to confront the truth. It was about noticing what really matters before it's too late. She had almost lost herself, but she had found her way back, not because someone else had shown her desire, but because she had learned to see what she truly needed, and it had been right in front of her all along. Emma finally felt whole again, and for the first time in years she felt hopeful that love, when nurtured with honesty and care, could grow stronger than ever before.